Hello, everyone. You are listening to WRPI Troy. We have a very special event going on right now. We have an interview for an event that's happening this Saturday at Proctor's in Schenectady. Gabe, would you like to take it away with a little introduction here?
Yeah, so today we are joined here on WRPI by some individuals who were a part of WRPI before either myself or Maverick. So I want to start off by saying welcome back to WRPI to Margie and Greg.
Yeah.
And
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great to hear. So Margie and Greg are part of a team that have put together a folk musical honoring the life and legacy of Jackie Alper, who was a WRPI DJ and a folk music legend in the local area. So to start us off, can you guys both introduce yourself a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm Margie Rosenkrantz, and I'm the director of the 8th Step, which is a long-running folk presenter, all-volunteer organization. We're in residence at Proctor's and have been since 2007, and we present folk, acoustic of all kinds, and probably 98% music concerts. And we've been doing that for almost 60 years.
Wow.
Not me personally, but...
And I'm Greg Giorgio, and I did the labor show here on WRPI from 1997 to 2008 as part of the Capital District Progressive Radio format back in that era. I also was, as Margie was, a sometime host of Mostly Folk, Jackie Alper's old program, under the tutelage of Sean McLaughlin here back in the 2010s. For a couple of 2-3 years, I filled in occasionally. And, you know, Andy Spence, the co-author, along with Sarah Dillon of the musical play that we're talking about Jackie's life, Andy got a hold of me about a year ago and asked for some background information that she didn't have access to. And I helped her do a little bit of research by just talking to her, and then also finding some old friends of Jackie's that Andy didn't know, and so Andy was able to interview them. And then I got asked to do some narration and actually help with the choral singing. So here I am in the middle of the production. I'm very honored because Jackie was a friend of mine, too.
Yes, this whole project woke up the network. You know, like people are coming out of the woodwork now.
That's great to hear. That shows how much of an impact Jackie had in the local area, that, you know, putting this thing on brings everybody back out together, and hopefully brings back some good memories about that time period and her effect on the area. Which is really good to say. I was going to say, Greg, you have a voice for narration. I'd say your voice is very, I don't know. I got to compliment your voice. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know, this is what I did for a living too. I worked in radio and television until I was about 55, and I actually had the job that I had was eliminated.
Okay,
and so I got cut loose. Although I was going to leave shortly after that time anyway, but yeah, I've been around microphones all my adult life.
Awesome.
All right, so can you guys just to start off the interview real portion of this, just tell us a little bit about the storyline of the musical and what people can expect at the show on November 1st? They can expect to hear, what they can expect to see.
Well, Greg is the cast member, and he knows this script intimately, so I'm going to let him take this.
Yeah, it's put together as narration and song. Ruth Pelham and I, another local folk music legend, will be doing the narration portions. And there are, we have this wonderful cadre of musicians, 9 of us, that are going to be doing some solo numbers with accompaniment on guitars and piano and bass. And we have a wonderful blues harmonic player, Charlie Reinhardt, who's part of the ensemble, and he adds this wonderful color to it all. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell the life story of this this fascinating character, Jackie Alper, who was a little New York kid whose parents were lefties, and she grew up in that milieu of the left wing and communists and labor activists, and she goes on to become associated with the real movers and shakers of what became the modern folk music revival, or really the modern folk music upheaval, with names like Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and, all of these wonderful people that were part of the scene in the late 30s up until the 1950s and then beyond. Of course, they all had careers that kept going. Woody, he had health issues and didn't go beyond that point very much. But, and some of the narration we're talking through Jackie, there are quotes that we have extracted through the research that was done on the script of things that she said, and then other of it is just third-person narration that talks about the sequence, the events, and the triumphs and the tragedies of her life, and the musical tapestry that's put together in this, I think, is really a wonderful storyteller in and of itself, because it really speaks about who Jackie was with her values. And there's just tremendous songs in here that you don't often hear anymore.
Awesome. I'm curious, what was the process like? We kind of were alluding to it before of collecting some of that history and archival information about Jackie. Like what was that process like? Who'd you reach out to? How did you get that information?
I mean, my firsthand experience with her went back 40 years.
Okay.
So I didn't, it was all in my head what I was able to contribute. But Andy Spence spoke to, I think, dozens of people as the main author of the script. And she and Sarah Dillon, worked this script around. And so there's just a ton of research that was done that way.
I want to throw in here that this whole project, as it stands, meaning folk musical, started when Andy and I had lunch together over Stuyvesant Plaza one day. And I was talking about writing a book about Jackie, and she said she wanted to do a show. It was basically, let's do a show. And she has done 4 or 5 of these in the past, and they're really meaty shows. They're good. There's one on the Erie Canal, and I'm forgetting the others.
Women's suffrage.
Women's suffrage, and so on. And she was the director of Old Songs, which is one of the triad of folk organizations in the region that made this a very vibrant folk region. She had presented several of these at the festival, so maybe it'll pop up next year at the festival. But we threw our heads together and started collecting information. And Jackie was a very close friend of mine, and she was also on my board for many years. And when she was failing, when she had a condition called Lewy body syndrome, where it has a kind of resemblance to Parkinson's, and they misdiagnosed it and gave her terrible medication that gave her hallucinations and things like this. And my husband and I and a group of other folk people kind of looked after her until she was she was moved to a nursing home near her daughter in Boston. So before that, she was on our board, and she and I cooked up. We're the political venue in the region. We started in Albany, and that was right up Jackie's alley and mine too. So we cooked up a lot of shows that we did. One that just comes to mind is we were there, first person reminiscences of Martin Luther King.
Oh, wow.
And we had some people who worked with him come in and just talk about their experiences. Anyway, be that as it may. I have a season over at Proctor's every year that runs from September to May, and Andy is not running old songs anymore. So she started writing this musical, and she's very good at it. She does her homework, and she gets all the, it's a hard process taking out the detritus and keeping the good stuff.
Yeah.
But she does a great job. And by the way, two of the people who are in the cast took over, were part of a 4 or 5 person crew that took over for Jackie after she retired and the show went on. And that's Howard Jack and Michael Slick. And it was a monthly rotation, so it was on every Sunday, but they all rotated hosting. And then other people came in as needed. So it was a community effort for sure.
Very cool. Was it when Jackie was running it, was it a weekly show or was it monthly then too?
It was weekly.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking before the show about how that Sunday night format for many years was mostly folk at 6 and Peace Radio at 8. And boy, was that a juggernaut for music and social consciousness, both shows.
Yeah.
Because both of the hosts were really musical people. And so you used to hear some interesting segue music in the other show too. But Jackie was just she was not only somebody who was tied directly to these folk music giants and performed with them when she was young, but she was also really a musicologist. I mean, there was nothing that I recall that she didn't know about the wide world of music. You name it, she knew about it.
Very true. I went one time down to Memphis to the I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of it now, of course.
Grand Ole Opry?
No. It's a museum
That's
about the racial struggle.
Oh, okay.
These days. Anyway, there's a poster down there that had Jackie's name on it that was on display.
Oh, yeah.
And, boy, that was kind of a shock going through. It's a very heavy-hitting museum.
Was it the National Civil Rights Museum?
Yes, thank you very much.
Good,
and
Dave.
That's great, thank you. And
Of course.
when you exit this place, you go through the room where Martin Luther King was staying when he was shot.
Oh, wow.
And they've left it exactly as it was. So it was a very emotional experience. There were a whole group of artists who were coming with me. But there's Jackie right there. And apparently Len Chandler, who was also a friend from performances over the years, who was a SNCC member, Student Nonviolent
Coordinating
Committee, which was kind of the activist branch of the civil rights movement. He called Jackie as Northern support and said, we need helmets. So she, being Jackie, went all over the place trying to find helmets, and all she could find in quantity were construction helmets. So she got these bright yellow construction helmets and boxed them up, and somebody drove them down there and gave them to Len and the SNCC people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and a lot of these names we're throwing out at you were household names then. They're names that anybody would have recognized.
Wow. All right. So at this point, we'll take a second and open it up to give away this first pair of tickets, and open it up to if that winner has any questions for the two of you, that they have the opportunity to ask that as well. So Maverick, would you read out that giveaway?
Sure, yeah. We have how many pairs of tickets do we have, Gabe?
I think for right now we're going to do one pair of tickets, and then we'll do some more later on.
Sounds good. Yeah, we have a pair of tickets to give away for Miss Music, the Jackie Alper Story. That'll be presented this Saturday, November 1st at 7 p.m. at Proctor's Theater in Schenectady. If you have won anything from WRPI in the last 30 days, you are not eligible for this giveaway, but the number here at the station is 518 518-276-6248. Please call in if you would like. You can ask a question or, yap with us about this show. So call in at 518-276-6248. Keep it locked here on WRPI Troy. We'll see if anybody actually calls in, but hopefully that happens. So do you have any next question, Gabe?
Yeah, so I'll continue on with, you were talking about how involved Jackie was with the civil rights movement and with all of these political movements throughout the time. So I wanted to ask, what do you think that folk music really meant to Jackie in relation to that, as well as what it means to you guys and how the folk music really intertwined with those movements?
Well, that's a very big question. For Jackie, her parents were immigrants, I believe. Is that true, Greg?
I believe so.
And she grew up, among people who were fighting for rights. And she was often taken with them. So, the opportunity and the role modeling, or whatever you want to call it, were there. But she went to a school in Greenwich Village, I believe, that was progressive. And I think that had something. She met Paul Robeson, the famous singer, there. And he had very open political leanings. And that would be a lifelong friendship. And he was kind of a lightning rod during the civil rights era.
Sure, yeah.
Feel free to jump in here because you know as much about this as I do, I think.
You're doing real well there.
And she got involved with a cadre of people in New York City during World War II, I think. And that would be Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, Sis Cunningham, and a whole group of people who were interested in the melding of, or that's not the word, using music to promote social causes. And that's why I said it's such a big subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were booking people, and they were pulling in artists and actors and people they knew were interested in this. And understand this is World War II, when fascism was a real danger around the world. And I recall doing a show here with Jackie on this very theme. And she had a recording, a 2-CD recording that was done in England by Woody and Pete, and there were 4 or 5 other people. They had a whole cast. It was a radio play, basically. It was a takeoff on the Martins. Well, it was called The Martins and the Coys, about these 2 families that warred down in the Appalachian Mountains. And it was about how the war came and they overcame their differences. And one pilot flew with a pilot from the other family, and they didn't want to tell the family. I mean, it's a whole dramatic play. And then there was a love affair in there between a girl from one of the families and a boy from the other family. And they ran this thing on British TV, I guess. I don't even know if it ran over here on the radio, radio. And we played the whole thing for 2 sessions, I think. It was a long show, but it was fascinating.
What I'll say is that from what I could tell and what I experienced is that for Jackie, the music and the causes were conjoined. That's how she related to the world. And I think in a lot of ways I do too. I've been around the folk music community for, well over 40 years. And I always saw that the music brought me back into focus because of the kinds of things that I wanted to and sought out to listen to were things that raised my consciousness or reminded me of things that I wanted to be able to address. And I think that's the way Jackie lived her life too. And in that way, being a listener of her show from the early 80s onward, she helped me to achieve what I was trying to do with my own consciousness, because her show was so well put together in that way. Like if I wanted to know what was happening with the United Farm Workers struggle in California, I learned about it on Jackie's show.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading it in the newspaper. So, that's just one example.
Yeah, I love that point, because when Gabe and I were putting this together, I was thinking, like, should we talk about politics? Should we get into that? But I realized, like, it's kind of, innately attached to this whole topic and this whole genre of music, because you kind of can't separate the music from the politics, because that's how it was born out of. These people were very active and involved in these causes and stuff, so it's impossible to break the two from each other. Go ahead.
As the director of a venue that does political music, and it's not all political, and that's really the point. You can't let the politics overcome the music. You just cannot do that, or you're dead. You'll be gone in 5 years.
Yeah.
Really. And I think Jackie really got that. And I think that whole group of musicians that she hung with almost for her whole adult life, like think of Pete Seeger, really, they knew that, and it attracted really fine musicians. But just imagine if none of that music was any good.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And we don't only do political music. In fact, we don't do as much political music as we used to. But I think sometimes someone who's a good songwriter and a good performer can say something in a way that you can't say when you're sitting in front of someone and having an argument.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So,
You can do so much with a song. It's just, it opens the mind and it opens the heart. And I just don't think there's any substitute. Like you can put together a campaign for some cause and you can talk till you're blue in the face. But if you go talk to people like till you're blue in the face, they get tired. But if you sing them a song, sometimes they totally changes their attitude. And I think I know what I'm talking about here, because I belong to a union that is a singing union. I've belonged to the Industrial Workers of the World for over 30 years, well over 30 years. And our union has the strongest tradition in the Americas of singing songs about our struggles. But they're not all just dire songs. Some of them, they make fun of the ruling class and they parody things. And I think that's what you have to do. And that's just a mirror of the kind of things that Jackie did all her life with what she was doing with music and activism.
I think for me, a lot of it, and for Jackie too, a lot of it was about inclusion. That a lot of these folks are people, even some of the unions, who are not heard, who don't have the kind of platform, so to speak, as other people. So getting them on the radio or on a stage and giving them someone to sing to, if they do it well, that's kind of, that's the big, do we want to do this or not? But I think it's organic. We do a lot of non-political music, a lot of it. But sometimes something is bubbling up in the culture, and that's what people are singing about. And we don't shrink from that. We put it out there. And we also don't tell somebody, well, you can say this, but you can't say that. I don't do that. It's not my place to do that. We either trust them to do their thing well, or we don't.
yeah, I think that's the perfect segue into the next question that I had, which, as we've spoken about, folk music has filled like so many different roles over the years as being this political vessel. what do you think is the importance of folk music and just political music in general in today's day and age? And how has that really changed from the days of mostly folk and the days where it was on air?
Wow, good question. I think it is. It's different and it's the same in certain ways. Mm-hmm. It's different because it's not as overt. I mean, we came from a larger folk community that had a network of festivals all over the Upper East Coast. And, you know, everybody loved we'd put on a show over at the old church where we used to live in Albany, where we were born. Let me just tell you one thing I think I didn't say. This is an 8-step production, this show, Saturday. And that's the name of our organization, which has been around since 1967. I wasn't there, but the organization was even more overtly political than it is now. And we wanted to be able to speak to a broader audience, not to get the politics out there, to get the music out there. So we've become part of a chain of international stages that offer someone who doesn't want to go into the music industry with all its shaping of what you're doing and its suppression sometimes of what you're doing.
Yeah, so someone who wants to keep their independence.
That's right. And I believe we're the only fair trade music venue in the region.
Wow.
And we're endorsed by the Traveling Musicians Union that many of our performers belong to, which is Local 1000 Traveling Musicians Union.
And American Federation of Musicians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we're, by definition, kind of the low-budget end of the music industry. But it's for people who don't want to compromise what they're doing. And at the same time, if you see them on our stage, they're really good.
Yeah. Gabe asked a very interesting question. And I think, here we are sitting in the studios of WRPI. And I think one of the big differences of what Gabe was trying to get to is that there isn't as much folk music on the radio anymore. There used to be a lot more. And we do have a couple of shows around here, but they're there's very limited opportunity for the kinds of musicians that Margie books at 8 Step.
I think WAMC has covered us really well, in particular Wanda Fisher, who, by the way, subbed for Jackie herself sometimes. She's on Saturday nights, and she covers a lot of it. But, if you're on, you have to be careful of what you say on the radio, right?
Yeah.
I remember my training from here, so it's kind of a tightrope that you walk. But we've managed to keep it out there. I mean, I've been doing this since about 1987, and I remember having a big show celebration at in Albany with Wanda when she was 10 years old and we were 15 years old. And it was a total sellout in this enormous hall. And that's different. The audiences are not as passionate about coming out anymore to these shows. And part of it is a generational difference. I have 3 kids, and they're all musical. But they didn't want folk music at the time. They wanted indie music. And still want indie music. One of them works for Apple, but he has a studio at home and he has kind of a second job. Another one is singing with her partner out in Santa Fe, and another one just does it constantly just for herself and people who want to listen to her. But they all know what's going on in the music world. But I would see this with young musicians who came in. They would you started seeing with the indie movement, every once in a while a banjo would show up or a fiddle.
Yeah.
And I saw this consciousness kind of start to come together. There is depths different. The audiences are not as passionate about coming out anymore to these shows. And part of it is a generational difference. I have 3 kids, and they're all musical, but they didn't want folk music at the time. They wanted indie music, and still want indie music. One of them works for Apple, but he has a studio at home, and he has kind of a second job. Another one is singing with her partner out in Santa Fe, and another one just does it constantly just for herself and people who want to listen to her. But they all know what's going on in the music world. But I would see this with young musicians who came in. They would, you started seeing with the indie movement, every once in a while a banjo would show up or a fiddle.
Yeah.
And I saw this consciousness kind of start to come together. There is definitely a link there among all of us. But we didn't want to sing. We didn't want to sing what our parents sang. We didn't want anything to do with what our parents did. So I'm just kind of waiting around to see how long it's going to take for it all to meld together.
And I think I'm very involved in the music scene around here, as well as the music scene down a little closer to New York City. And I agree with what you mean about the desire to try and get to live music, that it sort of died out for a little while. But I do really think that it is coming back, and that from what I see, that there are a lot of people who are, again, very interested and trying to get very involved with live music.
I see that, and I find that incredibly exciting.
Yeah.
Really do.
Yeah.
I really do. And I think one thing that really spoke to me was the resurgence of vinyl.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We have this huge music sale. In fact, it's coming up in a few weeks down at Empire State Plaza. It's like our big fundraiser. How appropriate, right? And the thing that all the young people, all the kids look at is the vinyl. Mm-hmm. And I still play vinyl at home. It's a different sound.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's less airbrushed.
Yeah.
It's just more fun.
Yeah. Definitely.
The physicality of it, I think a lot of people draws it to vinyl.
Yeah, saying that you really own it. When you're streaming music, you don't own that music, but when you play a vinyl, you own that music that you're.
That's right.
That you're playing.
Yeah.
It was always so exciting when somebody came out with some new album, and you'd been waiting and waiting for that, you know. So I have a question for you. Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the film on Bob Dylan?
I did not.
I really wanted to, but I forget what happened. I wasn't able to, but I plan on it still. I have been meaning to get to it.
Well, I'll tell you why I asked that, because there's been this huge controversy going through the folk community about whether or not there was actually a split between folk and rock. And I don't see it. It all came to a head at this one festival, but I don't really see it. To me, it was, we listened to folk because that's what came out of the folk revival earlier on. Mm-hmm. And then we got to the late 60s, and I mean, it was this explosion of amazing music, that whole era, but it carried right through the 70s, and it turned into rock. It just did. It had to go there. This was a youth movement. And I think it's just so exciting to see people, younger people, that's what we're talking about.
And Jackie knew Bob very well.
She did. She did.
Especially when he was just starting out, because he stayed at her house in Schenectady.
Wow.
Yep.
Now I have to see the movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's to your point earlier as well, that the form factor of what the young kids are listening to may change and stuff, especially to your point on them not wanting to listen to what their parents listen to. But I think the underlying effect and utilization of that as a method of relaying a message is still the same. you know, like back in the day it would have been folk, but, you know, now it may be indie, or back in the day rock as well. But the kind of purpose of using that to relay a message to people and building community and bringing people together still is the same, you know. And there's still definitely influences, like you said, you know, sometimes people will, you know, bring in a banjo or a fiddle or something, and it's, you know, it builds upon that legacy of folk, because that was the big kind of method back in these days that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that I also wanted to add in on that, what you said about, and what Maverick just said now about when there's an indie song and you see a banjo or a fiddle in it, and that sort of aspect. I also, like, I completely agree with that. One of a band that I'm a big fan of called Home Is Where. They're a emo and alternative rock band, but
right.
in their songs, in a lot of their songs, they use a saw. They play a saw with a violin string
Wow.
as an instrument.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's that same exact sort of thing that I love seeing that, and it's something that everyone finds cool, which that's sort of that, what you said about it coming back in that way.
I used to run a festival down in the Hudson Valley called Clearwater's Great Hudson River Revival. And it was Pete and his wife Toshi it was their festival, really. And they would have top national acts there for years and years and years. It lasted up to the pandemic, and we're kind of exploring how do we bring it back now. But, you know, the fact is that when you're doing something like that, I did the booking, I was the artistic director. You better have your finger on the pulse of the youth. You better, because that's who's coming out, and that's who's going to get excited about it, and who's not jaded yet and hasn't heard it all.
Yeah.
Right? So I just, I'm very, very encouraged, because I don't think music is ever going to disappear. You know, I think it's yours now.
It's inherent to humans, music.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, I think the folk world would certainly tell you, you know, we don't work with copyrights and stuff like that. What we did, we're just, here you go. It's yours now.
Yeah.
See what you want to do with it.
Yeah. And I mean, what I was saying earlier about, like, the part of the music scene that I'm a part of, it's like the DIY music scene, and it's DIY emo and DIY rock, but it's very similar in that way, where it's out there, it's anyone can use it. It's do it yourself. You're your own agent. You're the one who is booking with a venue, and
That's us.
yeah, exactly. And I love seeing that cycle as we've been talking about.
There's something about that when you get there, when you're in the middle of it. There's something about it that I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
You're nodding at me, and I know you get this.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how to describe it. But when I did Revival, when the work was done for the day, and we got thousands of people at this thing, and they all had spent the day hearing these wonderful, top-notch acts. But the biggest part of the day for all of us was getting into a song circle at the end, in the dusk, with everybody sharing what they knew, what they did. And it was not an audition. God help you if you started to try an audition. It was about harmony.
Yeah.
It was about bringing in other instruments. It's about what was that song that would be great for this moment. You know, that's really what it's all about. And it's something basic. It's something you can't resist. Once you feel it and you get there, you can't let it go.
Yeah.
So do you play?
I'm learning. I
What?
don't quite yet. I have a guitar, and I'm interested in also learning drums.
Awesome.
So I'm trying to.
Awesome. Absolutely great.
Yeah. I played percussion in high school and stuff. I haven't done much recently, but I found the radio interesting, and why I'm a part of this is because I liked the music side of stuff, but I kind of exactly what we're talking about now, appreciated the kind of less of the performance side and more of the you know,
connecting
and you know, like the
That's
messages and all that kind of stuff.
That's it.
So that's why I've been involved more so with WRPI than say the Music Association, which like my roommate's the president of. But you know, they always want me to get in the percussion ensemble. But you know, I'm busy here. You know, so that aspect of things I think is very, very powerful and kind of speaks to everything we've been talking about this interview.
I think that's what I was reaching for earlier. It's not about trying to get your political view out to the audience. It's about trying to get them to experience connection.
Yeah.
That's it right there. You know, and man, we so need that right now.
Yeah, I agree. And like what Maverick was saying about his roommate being president of RMA, my roommates are president of GZ Basement, which are you guys aware of what that is here at RPI?
No, tell me.
So GZ Basement is the DIY music and arts group at RPI, and they put on shows at RPI and do art events like art markets and stuff like that at RPI, which is something that I also love. Again, as Maverick said, I'm not directly involved with that, but I definitely do help them out with stuff, and we definitely try and do what we can to keep that DIY culture going and that independent and as everything that we've been talking about, that culture going.
There are organizations and structures around the Capital District that we created in answer to that need. One of them is called the Pickin' and Singin' Gathering, which is just exactly what it sounds like, and it is still exactly the way it was 30 years ago. And people still gather on Memorial Day weekend out at Saratoga Fairgrounds, and you walk around there at night and you pick and choose where you want to sit down and start playing. And it's glorious. Yeah. And we have open mic nights, but they're more structured.
Right.
They're not as satisfying to me. And we have 2 hosts this year who I think are doing a magnificent job. So I'm hoping that's gonna flower, if you know what I mean. But we do that once a month. We used to do it back in Albany once a week. And we had people who were competing to try and be a host. You know, it was very popular. But it's your turn.
And by the way, one of your co-hosts is also in the show, Kate Blaine.
Oh, Kate. Oh, my God. That's right. I was going to... I told myself I would go through the cast and tell you what I know about them. But, yeah, Kate is a
singer-songwriter of high regard in her own right.
She's
and
really good.
She hosts the Old Songs open mic, which I have been...
And the Cafe Lena open mic.
And the Cafe Lena open mic. So she's out there.
She's got everybody's stamp of approval on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so come hear the wonderful singing voice of Kate Blaine in the Jackie Alper Ms. Music
Yeah, we have
show.
one next Tuesday, actually, at
Nice.
7 o'clock at Proctor. We're up in the arcade at Proctor's.
Very cool. Do you want to go through the cast members and talk a little bit about them?
Sure. Well, Kate Blaine's the first one. And Kate is a singer-songwriter who I think in the near future is going to have an album coming out. Then there's Greg, and Greg and I did a whole lot of union work together over the years.
Yeah, we've promoted some shows, haven't we?
We have. With one character in particular, Utah Phillips, who built himself as the, let me get it right, the golden voice of the great Southwest. Yes. And he was a hobo during the 30s, I think?
No, post-Korean War.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometime during the 50s, and then he ended up in Salt Lake. And he stayed with Emin Hennessy, this legendary irascible character who was considered himself an anarchist and ran a Catholic worker house of hospitality called the Joe Hill House in Salt Lake. And in Utah, sort of formed what was the germination of his adult consciousness by hanging out with Ammon for a few years. And Ammon told him, you know, you come in off the train and you got a guitar and you're singing these wonderful songs. Why don't you get out there and do it?
So he did.
So he did.
And that's where I came in, because I used to bring him in. Whenever there was a presidential election, he would have this whole riff that he designed that was he's running for president on the sloth and indolence ticket. And he promises if he's elected to not do anything because the country's better off when the president is taking a nap.
I promised to shoot pool and scratch.
Yeah, and
something.
so on. What a character. And he was involved with union guys over here in Troy. And there was a young laundry worker who historically was the first woman organizer. At least around here.
She was the first one that was recognized here or anywhere that I know of in the modern American industrial history.
So
Kate Mullaney.
So the union guys created this. They found her house and they created for her grave, I guess.
Yeah.
This plaque, and Utah made up the slogan that went on there.
Yeah.
Don't iron. These are laundry workers, right?
Yeah.
Don't iron when the strike is hot.
Yeah.
So this is etched in that stone somewhere here in Troy. I'm not sure where.
And Utah had invited me to lunch with Tom Carroll, who was the former head of the Mohawk Industrial Gateway here in Troy. And so the three of us went to lunch, and then Tom took us out to the gravesite. And while we were driving, and to see the old house in Troy where Kate lived. So while we were driving in the car, Utah said, "Oh, yes, I remember Kate Mullaney. Wasn't she the one that said, 'Don't iron while the strike is hot'?" Tom Carroll nearly fell out of the seat while he was driving. And I leaned forward and put my hands on the seat behind the two of them and said, "That's amazing. We have to use that." And
I still think he made it up.
And it was used. Well, yeah, he made it up. But, he acted like it was historical fact that she had said it. But he made it up. It was fantastic. Well, anyway, I'm in the show, and I'm narrating, as I think I explained earlier, and singing some of the choruses. Howard Jack is in the show, former host here on WRPI of Mostly Folk, and longtime musician and member of the Landfill Mountain Boys.
Yep.
And Ruth Pelham, who started something that I think was a revolutionary idea, taking the music to the people with her own concept. She created something called the Music Mobile.
That's right.
And
she would go into an inner city park or anywhere
where she felt that people needed to have connection in their community with something musical, particularly young people. That's really 90%, I think, of her energy was directed toward getting kids to get out of their houses, come out into the street, and sing a song with their friends. Charlie Reinhardt is also part of the Landfill Mountain Boys these days. He sings, plays guitar, plays bass, plays harmonica. Michael Slick, also one of the Landfill Mountain Boys, going to play multiple guitar instruments, including a dobro. Toby Stover is going to be doing a lot of singing. She plays keyboards on one of the featured numbers.
Percussion.
She's a percussionist, although I don't think in the show that's going to be part of the. I think that's been.
She's not doing that's.
Yeah, I think that's been excised. But Alan Thompson is going to be playing keyboards for almost all of the songs, and also helping with the singing. He is a prolific keyboard player in all kinds of ensembles around here, and you almost can't go into the Indian folk club scene or other small venues, and I can't explain how many times I've heard that Alan's playing somewhere with somebody.
He gave piano lessons to my kids.
Well, that. And then George Wilson, who is a longtime local folk music stalwart. He's been involved in a lot of different projects, including Pfennig's All-Stars, playing dances with Bill Spence, Andy's
amazing fiddler,
guitar
and
player.
12 string.
Plays 12-string guitar. And he adds this just colorful, folksy element to the ensemble that Andy has put together for this that just is going to make it shine. So,
And they all sing.
And we all sing. And, I don't primarily play music as something that is part of my regular routine. But to be involved in this is just like some of these people are people I've known, from looking at them from, an admiration standpoint over the years. And now I get to stand on stage and sing with them. So it's fantastic for me.
Is the show more singing or talking, narrating? Like, what's kind of the makeup of the show?
I didn't count, but there's I think there's nearly 24 songs in this thing.
Yeah, I would say it's more about the music.
We sing a lot.
As an observer. Yeah. Yeah, the choruses are excellent.
The narration just guides us, but the music ties it.
Very cool. Awesome.
And the show probably runs...
Well, it'll be under 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think it's probably 2:45s. I don't know. That's what I requested. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think both halves run somewhere near 40 minutes or so. And so with the intermission, you'll be in and out. So 7 o'clock on Saturday night and you'll be home.
Some of the most interesting...
If you can stand to go home after that. You might want to go out and do something else.
Well, I think some of the most interesting parts of this show, despite the fact that the music is probably dominating, is to find out these little nuggets. Like she wrote a song with Nina Simone, the great jazz performer, and she helped provide legal support to people who were being chased by the McCarthy Committee. She organized the office. And there was one group called the Weavers over the 50s and 60s mostly that hit real commercial success. And she was part of that for the first performance. And then they asked her to go down to Washington and work for the McCarthy defense. And that's Jackie. She belonged to all kinds of organizations up here.
I think you hit most of them, but I was going to ask, is there anything else about Jackie's life, just important points or milestones that you would want to highlight and speak about? Or, I'm sure that we have hit a lot of them already, but...
she was involved with all of these significant groups, one of which was less well known, but she actually helped form a group in the early 40s called the Priority Ramblers, which actually had a couple of recordings. But then she was directly involved with the Almanac Singers and was one of their members for a while. And she was directly involved with the Weavers. And, the title of the show, Ms. Music, the Jackie Alper Story, Ms. Music was a term that her friend and one of the unbelievable voices of American music, not just folk music, but American music, Ronnie Gilbert, gave to Jackie. And Jackie was one of Ronnie's key mentors in the business. They literally met at someone's house in D.C., and Jackie invited her in to come sing with them because she was kind of hanging out in the vestibule or something. And Ronnie Gilbert came in, and Jackie took her under her wing, and Ronnie talked about how important Jackie was to her. And, if you quiz people who are music historians, when they talk about Ronnie Gilbert, they talk with their hand over their heart. And I do too. She was unbelievable. What a singer. She was the most powerful voice in that fantastic group, the Weavers. She had to stand back from the microphone because she projected so strongly.
Wow.
What a singer.
Well, I have two things I want to say about that question you asked. When Jackie and I did mostly folk for a year, it was after she retired, and she missed it. And I said, well, I'll take you over there every week if you want to go. She said, only if you do it with me. And I had done that before, but I'm running this venue too, so I was not sure about that. But we did that with, I think, Sean McLaughlin and Mario Nelson kind of alternated engineering for us so I could concentrate on Jackie. And the Lewy body was hitting her, and she was getting slower. So there were these gaps. She'd be in the middle of a sentence and it'd trail off, which, as you know, is not great on the radio. So I went home and I called Ronnie that night, and I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, pull out a pack of index cards and write down, when you hear them, really interesting stories or really interesting little facts or, something people might want to know about. And when you hit 10 seconds of silence, pull out one of those cards and just use it. It doesn't matter that it's not related. If it's interesting, you're good. And it really worked. It really did. And the other thing was Jackie turned 80, I think, and I had a party for her at my house. And Ronnie flew in from California. And her friend Dottie, who lived in a houseboat on the Hudson in this city, this is a very eccentric group of people. And she came by train up to our house. She missed her stop. Ed had to my husband had to drive into Saratoga to bring her back. But so I had these three seemingly slightly spacey people, and then the whole thing just shifted. And they were reminiscing about taking a bus from New York City up to hear Paul Robeson in Peekskill.
All right.
And there had been he was quite politically controversial, and the government was trying very actively to suppress him. And he had a concert that they had done a few days before that they had to cancel because there was too much unrest and too much violence. And so here they are 3 or 4 days later, and I think Pete Seeger was on the bill and maybe 1 or 2 other people, but Paul Robeson was the target. And after Pete sang, he went up there, and I think he did Old Man River. He was famous for, and some Yiddish song that was an anti-war song, and I've forgotten the name of it. And the rioting broke out. I heard Pete Seeger talk about picking glass out of his children's hair because their car window was broken. And he, being Pete, he would take one of the rocks somebody threw at him, and he took it home and he built a hearth around it, so he could forever after say, there's the rock that broke our, And Jackie and Ronnie and Dottie apparently knew this was going to break out, because as they came in, they saw these piles of rocks in front of people. And some of the police had helped put all this quote-unquote ammunition in front of people. And it was brutal. I think 200 people were injured. And but the concert finished, I believe. And that was something that she had known Paul Robeson, I think, from her days in Greenwich Village as a kid. And she knew him her whole, his whole life anyway. And that profoundly affected her. What could happen to somebody simply because of their political beliefs and the way that they express themselves through music. Yeah. So that was a very big one for her, for all of them.
She was fearless and committed. That's how she lived her life.
And she was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to know Jackie as a volunteer through Old Songs. And I knew that she loved Utah Phillips, and Utah was one of my heroes, too. And I hadn't actually joined the IWW like Utah had urged me to do until a few years later. But Jackie, one of her persona was that she wore this blue denim vest, and it had all these activist buttons on them, including an IWW lapel button. And the only way you can get one of those normally is to be a member. And the way she talked and the way she conducted herself, I just always assumed she was a member. And when local IWW activity had ramped up in our area, and I was helping get things moving by conducting meetings and trying to get people together to try to organize ourselves a bit, Jackie used to come to our meetings and offer us some very sound advice. And then a couple of years later, we were doing some activities, and we were doing some local informational picketing in support of had urged me to do until a few years later. But Jackie, one of her persona was that she wore this blue denim vest, and it had all these activist buttons on them, including an IWW lapel button. And the only way you can get one of those normally is to be a member. And the way she talked and the way she conducted herself, I just always assumed she was a member. And when local IWW activity had ramped up in our area, and I was helping get things moving by conducting meetings and trying to get people together to try to organize ourselves a bit, Jackie used to come to our meetings and offer us some very sound advice. And then a couple of years later, we were doing some activities, and we were doing some local informational picketing in support of we really had become an independent force to help support the idea that New York should raise its minimum wage by a lot more than was being proposed in the legislature. And so Jackie was there showing up on our picket lines with us constantly. And then after September 11th, myself and some activists in Schenectady formed a small group originally, and it grew a bit. And there was Jackie out there on the streets, and we were not a popular group protesting against any possible war after September 11th, but Jackie was right out there with us and never wavered. So, she led by example, and she was committed and fearless.
Yeah. I want to say something about the regional folk world.
But before we get to that, just need to remind the listeners that they're listening to WRPI Troy 91.5 FM. But go on and continue.
If there is an organizing structure in our folk world, it has to do with 3 venues and other important organizations. One is Picket and Sing and Gathering, one of those organizations. Mm-hmm. But there is, I think we've spoken about Old Songs, which in those days focused on traditional music, and the 8th Step, which did contemporary folk. And Cafe Lena, when Lena was still alive, it was the leader of us all because it was founded first. So if I was booking, I would make it a point to find out what she was doing, and I would book something different. You don't want to, knock somebody out of the park when there's no money around, And to our surprise, it just made us one of the biggest areas in the whole country. And Cafe Lena's still going, the 8th Step's still going, and so is Old Songs. And I think that's a tribute to, I think, what the larger consciousness would support, probably. But there was also a venue over here called Mother's Wine Emporium, and they did a lot of the same performers we did. But in those days, so many people turned out that it didn't matter if they played us and then played you and then played somebody else. it's not quite like that now. And also people, as soon as we started making real money with folk concerts, you started seeing, you didn't used to see them anywhere except a folk venue. But, there's a lot of different music forms that are interwoven into what we do, I would say.
And also, Jackie was very instrumental in the startup of Cafe Lena. She befriended Lena, and her and her husband Joe were there helping put that place together physically before the club actually opened. So, I mean, she was intimately involved in all of these venues and organizations.
There were a couple of other coffee houses in Schenectady, too, before that, and she was involved with them.
Yep.
So that's our story.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for us to wrap it up here for this interview. Would you guys like to remind everyone listening what it is that you guys are putting on?
Yes. Ms. Music, the Jackie Alper Story, a folk musical written and directed by Andy Spence and Sarah Dillon, is a tribute to Jackie Alper, her relentless fight for social justice and the music that inspired her. And it's happening this Saturday, November 1st at 7 p.m., 8th Step at Proctor's in the GE Theater, which is right next to the box office. And we'll have some people tabling. When are you guys going to be there?
Whenever you want us to be, yeah.
Okay.
We'll be there.
We will.
All right. And I think IWW is going to be there.
Yeah, we'll have a literature table there. And is somebody else?
Indivisible.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Women Against War. Then we have a few
right.
others.
Yep. And Jackie had many friends in Women Against War, so.
Yep.
So the circle is tied up again.
Yes.
It'll be a pleasure to see you there.
Yes, it'd be good to see you guys again there too as well. This was a very wonderful conversation, and I hope that the listeners enjoyed. I definitely did. I know Gabe did as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the interview. That's come to the event on Saturday if you are interested in anything we talked about today. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much
Thank
for having
you.
us.
What a pleasure.